Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Out of Spec podcast. I'm Max. With me is Ryan from Out of Spec. Hello.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Going well, Ryan. And today I want to talk about an interesting thing that you brought up with me, which is the lease loophole. Basically, we all know about the federal tax credit, and I'll bring up on screen here the IRS's website for EVs, right? Where you can get $7,500 as a refund for your next tax year for buying an electric car. But there's some very specific requirements for that a lot of compelling vehicles don't meet, right, Ryan?
That's exactly right. There's a lot of things that have to happen for you to qualify for that $7,500. One of them is on that page. You're seeing that income limit. Another big one is vehicles must have their final assembly in North America. So that eliminates quite a good number of electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids from receiving this tax credit.
Yeah, my personal favorite, one of my personal favorites, the Ioniq 5, a great vehicle, super compelling value that lost its tax credit now with this new 2023 regime with how it works because it's not built in North America. And I think it's a shame because it's such a good value. But now cars like ID4, Model Y, much more compelling because they do get the credit and this doesn't.
Right. And back in December, the IRS released some information and basically answered some of the FAQs. And one of the things that they introduced was basically a loophole. Do you want to go ahead and try and explain that?
Sure, yeah, feel free to jump in and correct me here. But as I understand it, basically, because leases are considered corporate fleets, there are actually laxer requirements for those than there are for, commercial, non-commercial, just normal customers buying a vehicle. So for that reason, a lot of these vehicles that let's just say have too small of a battery or weren't made in the US, they actually do qualify with a lease. And that leasee, usually the auto company's finance arm, can actually pass on that tax credit to the consumer to realize that discount in a way that you wouldn't get if you were buying the car outright.
Yep, that's exactly right. And to me, it's a bit of a head scratcher as far as why this is allowed. It kind of just circumvents the whole like North America assembly, the whole purpose of that. But as a consumer, as someone who might be buying one of these vehicles, it's really great news. And something to be noted is pay attention to how they're applying that tax credit. A lot of times, and what you would hope for is a capitalized cost reduction, which is basically essentially that $7,500 is acting as a down payment for you. So you'll see that full $7,500 realized for you, and that'll come in the form of lower monthly payments for you.
Yeah. So, Ryan, do you have like an example of a manufacturer vehicle you know of that would be that kind of that setup where you realize a lower monthly payment because the tax credit's passed on as a down payment on the lease?
Yes. For example, Volkswagen and Audi right now, they are currently have a lease deal where they offer $7,500 off, and that is a capitalized cost reduction. So you'll see that full $7,500, and that'll basically be calculated out to reduce your monthly payments. Monthly payments are dependent on a lot of things, but that $7,500 could potentially reduce your lease monthly payments by 100 to 200 or more dollars.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. And I always thought that leasing an EV is an interesting idea to begin with because, right, leasing is based off the depreciation of the vehicle. And we've seen that aside from some recent Tesla price cuts, that generally EVs hold a lot of their residual value pretty well because the expensive components in them, the batteries and stuff, assuming they're properly cooled, cough, cough, not Nissan Leaf, that they hold up well in terms of value, meaning that I feel like a lot of EVs, you're actually getting a pretty decent lease deal compared to, let's say, an ICE luxury vehicle from Audi, like a RS7 that might be a sweet car, but probably is going to depreciate a lot because of all of those, combustion components.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think definitely pay attention to the residual values on leases for EVs. Just like as an example, look at used prices for e-trons and then compare that to say like a Q5 or Q7. I think that you'll see there's not exactly the same type of depreciation in the EVs as you see in especially like luxury crossovers, SUVs in that market.
Absolutely. And it feels like a lot of these EVs really in the luxury space, you're better off leasing them because buying them, right, the outright cost can be so high. And in some of these cases, like ID4s built in 2022, you wouldn't be getting the tax credit at all because they wouldn't be eligible for it before. But thanks to this lease loophole, which currently exists, you kind of can realize some discount, which I think is a very good thing and something that you absolutely should take advantage of. It's kind of there's this tradition, I think, of lease hacking, and it's good to see it finally come to EVs in this, I think, pretty significant way.
Absolutely. And another point for a lot of people, I think this will be relevant, is that $7,500 tax credit if you purchase the vehicle. Even if you meet the income requirements, you get a vehicle assembled in North America, rather. You do all that stuff. If you don't have a high enough tax liability, you won't get that full $7,500 refund. It's not refundable. It won't roll over to the next year. So if your tax liability isn't $7,500, that's tough. But
Exactly.
with
And
this
yet
lease
another,
option,
yeah.
you'll get all of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So whether you make too little or too much income for that credit to apply, this is a great way around it because guess what? It's the corporate fleet that's getting that discount. So they pass it on to you with hopefully lower monthly payments. Now, is there another way that this can work for different manufacturers where maybe the consumer doesn't get as much benefit here?
Yeah, there's some ways where it would be possible for a manufacturer to implement this tax credit that wouldn't be the best way for you as a consumer. For example, if they were to take that $7,500 off the MSRP and then also adjust the residual with that, that could affect your payments and the payment plans, everything with that, not in exactly the same way, and you won't quite see the full $7,500 realized in your pocket.
hmm And it's kind of, I know it's a gray area for a lot of these manufacturers. We know VW and Audi are kind of promoting this as an incentive, but for certain manufacturers, I guess this is kind of still ambiguous.
Yeah, I think there's a lot up in the air. There have not been a lot of announcements. I know actually another vehicle that does have this is the new Alfa Romeo Tonale plug-in hybrid. Uh, so that's another option.
Yeah, and
But
that's a super compelling one because Alfa Romeo, it's the kind of vehicle that I've always think you might want to lease because it's a plug-in hybrid, complicated Stellantis vehicle, right? So like, probably makes a lot of sense to lease it as opposed to own it. Uh, and then here you go, you get these lower monthly lease payments for this plug-in hybrid, not built in the U.S. that otherwise wouldn't be eligible.
right, exactly. As a consumer who might end up leasing something, I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's pretty good for some of these automakers too. Like Mercedes is saying they're doing pretty well because of passed on, in part because of passed on lease incentives, right?
Yeah, that was just confirmed by the CEO, I think yesterday.
hmm Yeah, so it seems like the German brands are really capitalizing this on this, which makes sense. I know, like in Volkswagen's case, they now have the Chattanooga plant for ID.4, but I know a lot of the Mercedes and other Volkswagen Group products really do have a lot of the vehicle and in most cases the battery assembled elsewhere. And so as we get stricter and stricter requirements into this new tax credit, I think I'm guessing, planning to leverage this to their customers because a lot of their customers, let's face it, would be leasing anyways for these luxury makes. So makes a lot of sense. Makes vehicles like an EQS somewhat more compelling, especially given how expensive they are.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you bringing up that battery information stuff. So currently how it is any vehicle with final assembly in North America gets that full $7,500. Sometime in March, we're supposed to get some sort of update from the IRS that explains battery critical materials sourcing. So the battery materials must be sourced from specified locations and areas, and that will further limit what vehicles can get the full tax credit, since you would only qualify for half of it if you don't have the appropriate battery. So once March comes around, I think we'll see even more vehicles starting to have these $7,500 lease deals, so that people can realize that full tax incentive, even if that car may not technically fully qualify under a purchase.
Yep, we'll definitely have to cover that as it comes out in March because, yeah, a lot of the automakers themselves don't know yet. They can't really confirm or deny one way or the other. So lots of updates to be had, but super exciting news for anyone who is eligible to lease an EV. Do consider it right now. And then, Brian, are there other kinds of incentives floating around that people maybe should be aware of when it comes to leasing or just getting a new EV in some way? that they can maybe add on to this?
Of course, yeah. One thing that you always need to check out that I love to bring up is your local state incentives. Some of them do offer assistance for leases, not all of them. I remember I was looking, I think in California, some of their clean vehicle rebate program may offer some options for leases.
Yeah, California always has a lot of great rebates. Our utility companies here in Colorado offer some pretty, like Excel, which is one of the big energy providers, actually has like a buyer's guide website where they recommend here's good EVs to buy, and they have some, I think, incentives in the thousands of dollar range when you are getting a new vehicle.
Yeah, up to depending on your income, it's an income-based incentive. But for new vehicles, it can be up to $5,500. For used vehicles, it's up to $3,000. So definitely check that out.
Absolutely. And I can only imagine this is more speculative, but as these vehicles come online with, let's say, vehicle degraded capability, stuff like the Ford Lightning, et cetera, I can only imagine it's going to be a sweeter deal for these utility companies, not just to incentivize buy an EV because it's yet another appliance that we can bill you for, but also, oh, this can actually help stabilize the grid. So I don't think these power and utility incentives are going to go away. In fact, I suspect they're only going to get stronger as EVs become more and more of a force on the power grid.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we're already starting to see that with some home batteries. I think there are some programs around the country where you can basically offer up your home battery to occasionally be used to help even out loads on the grid. And you get paid pretty well for it. A lot of people say that it covers the cost of their system.
Yeah, my aunt and uncle, I think, justified a Tesla Powerwall in their house in Berkeley for that reason. So, lots of exciting stuff to be out there. But we made this episode sort of just as a PSA to tell you guys about this lease loophole. Take advantage. It's kind of sweet. Hopefully it sticks around. But thank you so much for joining me, Ryan. And thank you, everyone, for kind of tuning into this. Stay tuned because this tax credit is always an ongoing situation. But I'm so glad we could cover this part of it.
Yeah, of course. It was great talking with you, Max.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.